Little girl's amazing request, please be my dad, uncovers incredible transformation from Marine. The sun hung low above the small Texas town as Sarah closed her front door, the scent of barbecue mingling with the warm breeze, a comforting reminder of lazy Sunday afternoons. But comfort was foreign to her today. The weight of her two lives, demanding nurse by day, single mother by night, pressed down like a lead blanket. She caught herself gazing across the street at the neighbor's yard, where laughter and joy emanated from a modest family gathering. A slice of loneliness pierced her heart. How could she give Lily a fulfilling life when her own spirit ebbed with every passing moment? As the clock ticked insistently, the very thought of one more shift at the hospital evoked a rush of desperation. The emotional toll was relentless. Her patients' faces, those fragile life stories, haunted her in the dark hours as she sank into bed, wishing for an escape. Would Lily ever understand the sacrifices? Sarah feared that in her struggle to provide, she risked losing the very essence of their relationship. One afternoon, while organizing Lily's art supplies, a flyer tacked to the fridge caught her eye. A mentorship program for at-risk high school students. This could be a chance for Lily to make friends, to extend her kind heart. But was this really about helping Lily? Deep in her gut, a voice whispered that it might just be a distraction from her suffocating loneliness. Yet seeing Lily's sparkle, Sarah couldn't resist. "Let's give it a try," she said, though her chest tightened at the thought of potentially involving someone new in their lives. Lily, filled with enthusiasm, raced to the park, leaving Sarah torn between hope and fear. What would she really expect from this venture? The hours stretched like taffy, the ragged rhythm of her thoughts intensified. The sight of Jake, the solitary retired Marine on that park bench, stirred something deep within her. There he sat, a fortress of silent battles, shadowed by loss, when Lily bounded up with her innocent proposal, "Please be my dad." Those words cut like an arrow, hitting Jake, and unbeknownst to Sarah, striking a chord that would reverberate into their lives. With each conversation shared between Lily and Jake, Sarah watched the connection bloom, feeling a peculiar sense of envy and yearning. Their laughter intertwined like a melody that made her heart ache with a bittersweet rhythm. But with it came anxiety. She saw the judgmental glances drifting from some townspeople, whispers enveloping Jake like shrouded storm clouds. Sarah wrestled with the spiraling emotions. Could she embrace this unexpected friendship with a man haunted by his past? Or would she forever question his influence on Lily's young heart? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The weight of uncertainty pressed heavier. Jake found a purpose in mentoring Lily. But could he truly be the man they believed he was? Sarah's heart raced with the thought of their budding relationship unraveling under the scrutiny from neighbors. The nights of sleepless contemplation heightened her anxiety. The moment of reckoning loomed as Jake grappled with his ghosts, and the haunting past reared its head like a serpent ready to strike. What would it reveal about him? What if the power of their bond crumbled like a house of cards? She felt desperation gnawing at her, dragging her deeper into the shadows of her fears. Would she have to face another loss, clinging to a whisper of hope that her daughter could have the father figure she never had? Everything hung in the balance, beckoning an uncertain twist to their shared journey. The following morning dawned with a peculiar clarity, as if the universe had adjusted its lens. Sarah awoke with an unsettling blend of determination and unease. Today would be different. She resolved to confront not just the whispers of her neighbors, but also the very notion that plagued her thoughts, her growing attachment to Jake. After tending to Lily's breakfast, she paced the small living room, mulling over the protective barriers she had constructed around her heart. The temptation to close off her world and insulate her daughter from potential heartbreak was immense. But could she really shackle Lily's joy for the sake of her own fears? A deep breath steadied her resolve. She would engage, but with caution. The park felt alive with the vibrant chatter of children as she arrived. Jake was already there, animatedly discussing a project with Lily. Overhead, the sun cast a warm glow that almost felt like an embrace. She lingered on the periphery, observing their ease with each other. In watching Lily's laughter, a pang of longing for connection stirred within her. Yet, lingering close to his past, became a heavier chain than she anticipated. "Hey, Sarah," Jake called, his voice steady and inviting. "Join us. We were just brainstorming some art ideas for Lily's mentor program." Her heart raced at the unexpected invitation. He was reaching out, but did she have the courage to embrace vulnerability? She hesitated only a moment before stepping closer, forced to remind herself that she was not the only one carrying burdens. As they exchanged pleasantries, Sarah felt the competitive tension in her gut. Jake's hands held a spark of artistry, a reminder of his past life before the likes of loneliness tarnished it. Was this the defining moment to bring her defenses down, to wrap her heart in a chance for something more? Their conversation flowed, intermingled with laughter and simplistic banter, but with every word Jake spoke, shadows flickered through his demeanor. Sometimes, it seemed he wore his pain on his sleeves, the way he sometimes stared into the distance, as if lost in a battlefield of memories. Did Lily see it? Would she be able to gauge the real depth behind Jake's smiles? After the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah felt a surge of urgency swell within. As they parted, she found herself on the brink of asking Jake about his past, to peel back layers that veiled his identity. Time pushed her further. The fear of remaining in the comfortable, familiar realm of suspicion grew unbearable. "Jake," she said, pulling him aside as Lily raced ahead to chase after fireflies. "Can we talk? I need to know more about you. About everything." He paused, a flicker of guardedness crossing his face. Then, a deep breath deflated his tense shoulders. "Yeah, I think we need to," he replied, but the uncertainty in his eyes felt heavier than her own. As the darkness settled around them, Sarah's throat tightened. Would this intimate moment reveal a man she could trust, or would it only solidify the cracks that were already forming beneath the surface? She needed to know if Lily was safe in his presence, but she also hungered for connection, muddied by fear. Jake glanced at the ground, swallowed hard, and finally met her eyes. "The time had come to face parts of my past I thought were buried." And just like that, the air shifted, heavy with untold stories waiting to escape. What truths would emerge from the shadows? The weight of Jake's admission hung between them, the silence stretching into a chasm filled with unspoken fears. Sarah's heart raced, her mind thrumming with anxious possibilities. This was it, an opportunity to unveil his truths. But how deep did those truths run? Jake's gaze fixed on the ground, his body language a blend of retreat and resignation. "Tell me about your past," Sarah urged softly, grappling with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. She sensed a pivotal moment teetering before them, one that could either connect or sever their already fragile bond. Jake looked up, scanning her face for sincerity. "I've made mistakes, big ones, the kind that haunt you." His words were heavy, laced with regret. "I didn't always live here. I had." He hesitated, managing a bitter smile. "Let's just say I had a life that couldn't sustain itself." Sarah nodded, trying to process the implications of his cryptic admission. What had this man experienced? She was keenly aware of the implications for Lily. It wasn't just about Jake's past. It was about safeguarding her daughter from the shadows that loomed over them both. "I also used to be good at something," he continued, voice tinged with nostalgia. "Art, sculpting. It was my way of creating a world I could control." He chuckled dryly, but the humor didn't reach his eyes. "Then life happened, and I lost my way." "Art?" Sarah echoed, intrigued. "Maybe you should pick it up again." The suggestion slipped out before she could second-guess her own encouragement, but it felt right, like a door opening to a glimpse of the person he could be. For the first time, Jake met her gaze fully, his expression shifting, hope tinged with uncertainty. "You think so? I'm not sure I could ever get back to that, but—" His voice trailed off as if he were weighing the gravity of the possibility she offered. Yet fear loomed large. Could he really reclaim that part of himself? And what about her? Should she be nurturing this budding connection with a man shrouded in such uncertainty? The fundamental dilemma of her own heart clashed against the protective instincts of a mother. "Why did you leave it behind?" she pressed, leaning in slightly, craving insight into the man beneath the layers of pain. "Fear, I guess. Fear of judgment, of failure, of how the world would see me if I didn't live up to their expectations." He laid his soul bare, yet the fear laced in his admission mirrored her own. Every revelation solidified the precarious understanding that existed between them, both haunted by their past choices. They were two beings weaving their stories together, yet harboring fears of repeating history. "Maybe it's time for both of us to face what we're afraid of," she said, emboldened by their shared vulnerabilities. "You with your art, and me with my—" She faltered, realizing that here lay a crucial moment of self-discovery. "My need to protect my family." He looked surprised, and then a shadow of understanding crossed his features. Protecting what matters most can be both noble and isolating. The words were a revelation, hanging in the air between them, the interconnectedness of their struggles forging a connection stronger than she had expected. In a sudden burst of resolve, Sarah took a step closer. "I want to help you find that part of yourself again, if you want me to." It was both an offer and a risk, a bridge built over fears that threatened to pull them apart. "The time has come to face this together," he replied slowly, as if stating a newfound truth. There was a flicker in his eyes, a mixture of gratitude and apprehension that suggested perhaps this was the turning point for both of them. But just as hope began to unfurl, the approach of Lily, excited and wide-eyed, interrupted their intense moment. "Mom, Jake," she called, her small hands illuminating the night as she danced with fireflies. "Can we go on an adventure? I think it's time to be brave." As Sarah looked at her daughter's unmistakable joy, a wave of realization washed over her. Lily had a talent for bringing people together, a gift she had inherited from her mother. This quest for courage was not just for her but resonated in every heart involved. But as Sarah exchanged a glance with Jake, the question gnawed at her. Was Jake prepared to venture down this path alongside them? As she held her breath, awaiting his response, she knew one thing. The journey was just beginning, and it might lead them somewhere neither of them anticipated. And in the depths of their uncharted territory, an unsettling thought emerged. What if the greatest adventure they faced lay within their ability to confront the remnants of their past and shift towards a promising future? The fireflies painted a shimmering backdrop as Lily twirled on the grass, her laughter punctuating the evening with innocence and optimism. For a brief moment, Sarah felt enveloped in her daughter's light, but the gravity of her earlier conversation with Jake pressed heavily on her mind. "What kind of adventure do you have in mind, sweetheart?" Sarah managed to ask, striving to redirect her thoughts from the bittersweet uncertainties that loomed ahead. Lily stopped spinning and gazed up with that same bright-eyed determination she displayed whenever she sought to conquer a new challenge. "I want to go exploring. We can find treasures outside, or go up the hill and see the stars. It will be so much fun." There it was again, the bravery that seemed innate to children. Her daughter just exuded an effortless sense of freedom, unburdened by the weights of doubt and fear. As Jake watched Lily, Sarah noticed the flicker of longing in his eyes. It was the yearning for freedom and purpose, for the unencumbered passion to create something meaningful again. Could he find that spark if he agreed to join this little adventure? "Would you want to come with us, Jake?" Sarah asked, testing the waters with a tone of genuine invitation. The warmth of her voice belied her anxiousness for his answer. He hesitated, glancing between Sarah and her daughter as if he were weighing an impossible decision. His voice faltered, revealing the tension beneath his reserved demeanor. What if I mess it up? Mess it up? You can't mess up fun, Lily replied, bouncing on her toes, her innocence sharp enough to cut through the fog of Jake's hesitation. Please, we can all be brave together. A smile broke across Jake's face, a fragile bloom among the remnants of his past. For the first time she saw a flicker of potential within him, something beneath the layers of vulnerability, a glimmer of the artist who once shaped reality with his hands. Okay, I'd like that, he finally said, the words emerging as if a weight had been lifted. Each syllable restored fragments of hope that had long been overshadowed. As they began to walk toward the hill, an electric charge of determination surged in Sarah's chest. This was more than just a simple outing. It was a commitment to move forward, a binding promise to embrace the fear of the unknown. Jake's willingness to take this leap hung in the air between them, teetering on the brink of transformation. Arriving at the foot of the hill, Lily scampered ahead, gleefully running up the gentle slope, her laughter trailing behind her like a banner of freedom. Sarah and Jake paused, watching her explore the world without hesitation. Do you have any regrets, Sarah? Jake asked suddenly, breaking the comfortable silence. About the choices you've made? The question landed heavy, forcing her to weigh the complexity of her life's decisions. Every choice has consequences, she replied thoughtfully. The trick is to learn from them. Regret can paralyze or inform. It's a matter of what you choose to do next. Jake nodded slowly, her words reverberating in the silence between them. In that moment, the dogged nature of their past began to fade, drowned out by the hope that Lily's adventure inspired. Together they climbed the hill, with shadows of doubt receding. The stars began to blossom above them, tiny, shining symbols of possibility. But as they reached the top, Sarah felt a familiar flicker of worry clawing at her heart. Would Jake be able to confront what haunted him? Could he transform his past mistakes into a new future? Lily's call pulled her from the depths of her thoughts. Look at all the stars. Let's wish on them. As they joined her in a circle, Jake's hand brushed against Sarah's. An unspoken pact lingered there, the venture into unknown territory, the chance to reforge his identity alongside her burgeoning maternal instincts. But as she looked at Jake, the doubts loomed again. What if the deeper shadows of his past came rushing back? Would they be able to support one another before the weight became too much to bear? Lily's voice rang with conviction, breaking the tension that enveloped them. Mom, Jake, let's make our wishes. I wish we can always be brave. In that moment, Sarah felt a pulse of hope igniting anew. Perhaps bravery wasn't just an adventure into the external world. Perhaps it was in facing fears, old and new, that true transformation awaited them all. And yet, amid the stars and the laughter, the haunting question lingered. How far was each of them willing to journey into their fears for the treasures hidden within? Standing at the top of the hill, Sarah felt the chill of the evening air contrast sharply with the warmth that radiated from her daughter's laughter. Lily's unfettered joy was infectious, sparking a flicker of optimism within Sarah's heart. Yet, beneath that surface, uncertainty churned like storm clouds. The weight of Jake's past hung in the air like an unwanted cloak, threatening to overshadow the possibilities emerging before them. As they made their wishes, Sarah found herself silently grappling with the politics of regret. What if Jake's darkness came spilling over, dragging them both into a chasm from which they couldn't escape? Yet, there was another voice, a whisper of daring, nurtured by the hope Lily brought into their lives. Could this moment mark the beginning of something transformative for them all? Let's go find some treasures, Lily declared, her eyes twinkling as she pointed toward the silhouette of the nearby woods. With her innocent enthusiasm, the little girl became an unexpected catalyst for change in both adults, her vision blurring the lines between childlike imagination and the potential for renewal. Jake stood at the precipice of both discovery and fear, unable to mask the flicker of hesitation in his posture. What if I'm not enough? He murmured as they began to follow Lily down the path. The vulnerability in his voice pulled at Sarah's heart, a keen acknowledgement that perhaps he held more doubts than she initially perceived. None of us are ever enough in the conventional sense, Sarah replied, choosing her words with care. It's about learning to stretch our limits. Just like how Lily's asking us to explore this adventure together, we can do the same with our fears, right? Their eyes met briefly, and there was a fleeting connection, a shared understanding that both had lived through their struggles, but the journey forward could be shared. Jake's brow furrowed slightly as he absorbed her words. In that moment, she sensed he was wrestling with something profound, the crux of his identity, the need for connection, and the desire to rise above the shadows enveloping his past. As the trio ventured deeper into the woods, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that Jake sought validation through adventure, the thrill of stepping into the unknown, mirroring the reckoning of his thoughts. Every rustle in the leaves or flash of movement sent ripples of apprehension through him, a visceral reminder of every misstep that had led him to this moment. Lily's right. She pressed on, her pulse quickening. We can find treasure. Environments like this can be forgiving, and they invite the chance to rewrite our narratives. And what if the past follows? Jake's voice trembled slightly, revealing cracks in the armor he wore. What if I can't outrun it? There's a difference between running and facing it. You'll find there's power in confronting what haunts you, Jake. Every obstacle can serve as a guide toward growth. It felt as if Sarah was glimpsing the inklings of the mentor she had never realized she could be, urging him toward a bravery she desperately wanted to cultivate in both of them. Once more, hope flickered within Jake's expression, bewilderment mingling with cautious resolve. It was a duality that mirrored her own. Perhaps in fostering his growth, she could forget her doubts for a moment, reframing her perceptions of failure to fuel their adventure. Lily's joyous shrieks suddenly pulled both adults from their weighted thoughts. "Look what I found," she exclaimed, holding an unassuming rock that sparkled in the moonlight. To a child, that rock was more than a mere stone. It was an artifact of discovery. In her hands, it held the promise of grandeur, igniting imaginations. Jake grinned widely now, and for the first time, the shadows that clung to him appeared defeated. "We can find our treasures," he echoed, a newfound determination threading through each word. But the fleeting moment of unity was interrupted. A hint of stark realization posed a grave challenge ahead. What if the treasures they sought weren't enough to unite them? Would the relentless burden of the past overshadow their attempts at rebirth? As they pressed onward, Sarah felt the shadows creep back in, her heart racing with the weight of what lay ahead. Given the fragile bonds they were attempting to forge, she sensed the coming storm on the horizon. With each step further into the woods, a new turbulence began to brew. Each treasure gathered was tied to an unearthing of deeper truths that both could not yet grasp. Would they discover enough within themselves to confront what awaited them in the darkness? Her breath caught as she thought of the next bend, the treacherous path yet to come. What would they find there? The forest thickened around them, the shadows deepening in affinity with Sarah's circling thoughts. The air seemed to vibrate with an energy that mirrored the uncharted territory of their relationships. She watched as Lily flitted from tree to tree, her laughter peeling through the dense undergrowth, a beacon of light amidst the uncertainty that loomed in Sarah and Jake's hearts. With each stride, the forest floor gave way beneath their feet, reminding Sarah of the precariousness of the path they were choosing. She sensed Jake's hesitance, a reluctance tethered to the weight of his past. Her resolve coalesced around supporting him, but her own feelings twisted into a knot of concern. Was the transformation Jake sought even possible? Would she ever be able to let go of the shadows binding her? "Let's go this way," Lily chirped, darting toward a cluster of trees that appeared unusually inviting. Sarah shot a glance at Jake, gauging his expression as the child tugged at his hand. "Do you think we can trust it?" he asked, uncertainty crinkling the corners of his brow. "It's a chance," she replied firmly, feeling her own resolve swell. "We need to start somewhere." Sarah's voice carried a weighty promise, holding the potential for both discovery and confrontation. As they fell in step behind Lily, Sarah wrestled with the thought that perhaps Jake needed more than encouragement. He might be in need of truth. Her own journey hinged on honesty as well, a deep-rooted conviction simmering just beneath the surface. "Can I ask you something?" she ventured after a few moments, her gaze turning toward him. What do you most want in your life now? Jake hesitated, his back straightening slightly as he considered her question. His voice scraped through the stillness. I want to be better, he said slowly, his breath catching. I want to know that I'm worth something. To you. The vulnerability in his admission struck Sarah, sparking a fire of recognition within her. Like her, Jake wasn't merely trying to circumvent his past. He was searching for validation, not only for himself, but also for the path he hoped to carve alongside them. She steeled herself against the rising maelstrom of doubts, willing to embrace the skills she had honed in her own life for his benefit. You are worth something, Jake, she spoke with conviction. Your past is part of you, but it doesn't define who you are now. Every day is a chance to make a new choice. Her words coiled around them, encircling the space between their vulnerability and their growth. There's a part of me that feels I'll always be the man who messed things up, he murmured, frustration layering his tone. What if I can't? Then what? Sarah pressed on, hoping to ignite something in him. What if you decide to change? What if we work together to rewrite the narrative? The outline of adventurous exploration faded under the weight of their conversation. It became clear that the treasures were more than physical. They were emotional and psychological, each waiting to be unearthed. Jake's gaze flickered with conflict, as fear mingled with newfound determination, illustrating the internal battle he faced. I want to try, he said, and the quiet admission held all the weight of commitment. In expanding their circle of trust to include honesty, they were unearthing hidden facets of each other. Yet the storm within Sarah began to swell once more. The considerations of whether Jake could truly put behind him the past loomed over them like a shadow. As they reached a small clearing, the sun dipped into the horizon, drenched in hues of orange and purple. The beauty of the moment clashed with the stark reality they faced. Sarah inhaled deeply, striving to maintain composure as she felt the decision before them crackling in the air. Would they continue to confront their fears together, or would the past finish what it had begun? Can we promise to be honest about our fears? Sarah proposed, looking to Jake intently. Every time we feel that shadow creeping in, we share it? The sincerity in her voice hung between them, rendering Jake still as he internalized the weight of her request. He nodded slowly, his features softening from apprehension to determination. But just as a feeling of unity began to settle, a sharp intake of breath echoed through the clearing, a reminder that while they might begin to rise above the darkness, it always threatened to return. Shadows danced with the movement of the dying light, casting doubt over their fragile exchange. What had they truly unearthed? With each commitment stretched between them, Sarah sensed that the real confrontation was still waiting just beyond the next bend. As the last sliver of sun dipped below the horizon, a rustling sound emerged from the underbrush. Sarah's heart raced. What awaited them now? Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, the rustling sound in the underbrush seeming to echo the turmoil inside her. She glanced at Jake, whose demeanor had shifted from hesitant to alert, his muscles tensing as he prepared himself to confront whatever emerged from the shadows. The energy around them crackled, and the path they had been walking felt obscured, engulfed by both anticipation and anxiety. Stay close to me and Lily, Sarah whispered, her voice steadying the trembling thrill in her own core. The enveloping darkness played tricks on her mind, conjuring images of doubt and uncertainty. Would they find danger? Or would it be another chapter of vulnerability waiting to unfold? As the foliage parted, a small figure broke free from the bramble. Lily, her face lit with curiosity, her cheeks aglow against the backdrop of the dimming sky. Look, there's a turtle, she exclaimed, pointing to a slow-moving creature that seemed to have emerged from its hidden world into the path of potential discovery. Relief washed over Sarah, replacing the tension with a flicker of warmth. It's beautiful, isn't it? She knelt down beside Lily, examining the turtle's textured shell, marveling at its resilience. In that moment, she found a metaphor for her own journey. Just like the turtle, She desired to navigate her environment without fear of being drawn back into the shadows of her past. "What's it called?" Lily asked, her voice lilting with innocence. "That's called a box turtle. They carry their homes with them, just like we carry our experiences," Sarah responded, her words softening into a contemplative cadence. Jake knelt beside them, his eyes following the small creature as it cautiously moved forward. "Not a bad analogy," he murmured, a hint of admiration threading through the admiration. Something stirred in Sarah at his comment, a realization that grew with the depth of their shared moment. They were all seeking safety as they traversed the intricate landscape of trust and vulnerability, learning to navigate from one experience to the next. Perhaps this turtle could symbolize their resiliency, their commitment to both confronting and replacing the weight of fear with something more tangible. Hope. "You know," she said, her gaze shifting from the turtle back to Jake. "We've got our own shells. Maybe it's time to create new homes, acknowledging both the past and our paths forward." "That sounds good," Jake replied, his eyes still fixed on the turtle but now suffused with a curious light, a desire to shift perspective, aligning with Sarah's intent. Yet beneath the surface, Sarah sensed the familiar restlessness in him. The shadows of his old life continued to loom close, whispering doubts that he wasn't ready to release. "Do you really think we can do it?" he asked, his vulnerability peeking around the edges of his facade. "We can, but it won't be easy," she admitted, her voice dipping into the truth they both feared yet needed to confront. "It's about progress. Each step, even the small ones, count." Jake nodded thoughtfully, yet Sarah could see he was grappling with more than just the metaphorical weight of their conversation. Lily's chirpy voice erupted into their deepening silence. "Can we take the turtle home?" The question caught Sarah off guard. She smiled at the innocence of childhood want, yet she felt an echo of Lily's request resonate deeper. What if finding a family meant embracing life with all its messiness? Could Jake envision the possibility of being not just a better version of himself, but someone who could actively take on a role of guidance and protection? "Maybe we could," Sarah replied, her curiosity ignited. She turned to Jake. "What do you think? Could you consider being there for her?" Jake faltered, his eyes wide as he grapples with the enormity of the proposition. The shadows that had danced just out of sight now aligned themselves as questions formed. Could he step into a role that would require him to face his deepest fears, to embrace the very idea of family in a way that he had never dared imagine? In that moment of uncertainty, Sarah saw flashes of determination flicker in his gaze, but as quickly as they sparked, doubt threatened to shroud them. "I don't know if I can be the man she deserves," he confessed, anguish lacing his words like a painful undertow. "Maybe it starts with just being present," Sarah urged, sensing the slippery slope of revelation and its potential hold on their future. "You don't have to have all the answers right now. Just being here is a start." Jake held her gaze, the internal battle playing across his features. Her offer was as much a challenge as it was a lifeline, and in that charged silence, the weight of their choices began to settle heavily across the clearing. As they watched the turtle resume its slow-paced journey, Sarah's heart raced with both optimism and fear. The path before them was now illuminated with potential, yet also fraught with the very shadows they aimed to overcome. "Are you ready to try?" she asked softly, her voice the gentle push down the uncharted path. His hesitant but affirmative nod filled her with a spark of hope, and in the stillness that followed, a familiar whisper of the forest sparked a deeper urgency within her. If they were to take that leap, could they withstand the tremors of transformation waiting just ahead? The silent moment stretched between them, rippling through the air like the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze. Sarah watched as Jake processed her challenge, the shifting emotions reflected in his eyes. The vulnerability he had unveiled felt heavy, like a newborn bird, requiring shelter and nurturing to take flight. "Just being here," he echoed, as if trying to convince himself of its weight. The uncertainty he wore like an old coat, familiar yet constricting, held him back from a step he yearned to take. As they remained in that transient bubble, the sounds of the forest wrapped around them, creating an intimate cocoon. Sarah felt a sharp twinge of yearning for Jake, wishing he could grasp the strength that lay within. But how could she communicate that without overwhelming him further? Think of it this way. Sarah's voice cut into the silence, her words carefully chosen. What if you take this opportunity, not as a leap into fatherhood, but simply as being a friend to Lily? You can start small. Small steps, huh? Jake accused lightly, but the corner of his mouth sparked with a reluctant smile. It felt as though a door had cracked open, letting in a sliver of light into the darkness that had lingered too long. Exactly, Sarah encouraged. You can simply enjoy her presence, be there when she needs someone to talk to or have fun with. That's how it starts. Tiny moments of connection that build something bigger. A flash of resolve flickered in Jake's gaze. It's a lot to unpack, he said, the gravity of his realization creeping into his tone. What if I fail her? What if I don't measure up? Failing is how we learn, Sarah replied, her pulse quickening as she stepped closer. And measuring up is a moving target. You just have to be genuine. Kids sense that. They want authenticity over perfection. Her heart ached for his struggle, for the burden he carried, one she recognized as the fear of inadequacy. The parallel to her own battles with self-doubt felt like a saturated stroke of fate. They stood on the precipice of transformation together, two fractured souls daring to stitch a new reality. But the urgency coursing through her did little to mask the weight of their individual burdens. Maybe I can start by just spending more time with her, Jake murmured, his tightly wound defenses beginning to unravel. The notion of merely being present, real and unguarded, was freeing. Let's take it day by day, Sarah advised, appreciating the shift in his demeanor, an acceptance wrapped in tentative determination. She felt herself leaning in, not just toward him but also toward a newfound possibility. Just being here, he repeated, echoing the essence of her guidance. The confidence within him lifelike now, and his powerful vulnerability transformed into availability. Sarah couldn't ignore the fact that this moment marked the first tangible step in both of their journeys. Yet as they began to settle into their conversation, a sudden realization flicked a spark deep within her. It wasn't only Jake who was reaching for transformation, she was on the precipice as well. Her heart beat in tandem with the revelations unfolding. She had navigated through pain and loss before, but how much stronger was she now? This wasn't solely about Jake confronting his fears. This was also her journey to embrace vulnerability as a bridge to healing. Perhaps it's time we both put aside our shells, she said quietly, her reflection pulling Jake's attention back toward her. What do you mean? He questioned, his brow knitting in curiosity. I'm talking about the fear of not being enough. Our pasts don't dictate our futures. We can create something new. For Lily. For ourselves. Her words echoed like a call to arms, stirring embers dormant within. As she finished speaking, she knew that this was a shared reclamation of strength. But beneath the surface excitement, the specter of their past lingered, undercurrents unresolved. Jake swallowed, and the tension danced in his eyes. She understood now. This was more than just a facade of strength for the sake of each other. It was a test. They were not just reshaping their identities, but challenging each other to confront the darkest recesses they'd both tried to keep hidden. And just as that thought settled in her chest, a distant sound erupted, an unmistakable snap of a twig breaking. The forest became silent, both Sarah and Jake instinctively alert and aware. What was that? Jake's voice was taut, the earlier warmth retreating into unvoiced dread. The shadows shifted around them, muddled by stirring anticipation. Whatever it is, we need to be ready, Sarah whispered, a knot of tension tightening within her. Here, now, they faced a new unknown, a challenge testing their resolve that forced them forward into the lurking shadows. In that weighty silence, the air shimmered with possibilities intertwined with imminent danger. What lay ahead could either fracture or fuse them, yet all Sarah could feel was the electric charge of their newfound determination intermingled with uncertainty. Would they emerge from the trial stronger, or would they retreat into hidden recesses where shadows held sway? And as footsteps approached through the underbrush, They braced for whatever revelations or confrontations awaited just out of sight. The low rustle of leaves filtered through the air, amplifying the charged silence between Sarah and Jake. The world had vibrated with life just moments before, yet now it felt as if time held its breath, waiting for a revelation to untangle the knot in their throats. In those still moments, fear clawed at the edges of Sarah's resolve, but a flicker of something deeper surged within her, a fierce determination to face these shadows together. "What do we do?" Jake's voice edged with a raw urgency, cutting through the tension that enveloped them. His earlier bravado faded, leaving nothing but the stark realization that their moment of personal growth was abruptly at risk. Instinctively, Sarah stepped closer, the connection between them feeling like an unspoken promise of solidarity. "We face it. Together," she replied, her own heart racing as she kept her attention fixed on the noise now drawing nearer. It was a simple declaration, but it held the weight of their new understanding, the fragile threads of their burgeoning connection, woven tightly with each shared fear and unresolved question. The underbrush parted ahead, revealing a figure cloaked in shadows. A slight, unsteady form emerged. A young girl, no more than 8 years old, her tousled hair catching the faint light filtering through the foliage. Sarah squinted, attempting to discern the details of a face etched with confusion and hope. "Lily," Jake breathed, the name a fragile prayer that echoed through their spiritual landscape, and Sarah shared in the sharp intake of breath, her pulse racing at the thought of the child's imagination wrestling with the possibilities of a new paternal figure. "What are you doing here?" Sarah asked gently, kneeling to meet the child at eye level, her mother's instinct overwhelming her curiosity. The girl hesitated, her gaze flickering between Jake and Sarah, as if trying to read the emotional landscape that undulated in the air. "I wanted to find you," Lily finally said, her words brimming with innocence and unexpected resolve. "I thought, maybe you could be my dad." The statement hung between them, a delicate thread of hope woven into the fabric of uncertainty. Jake's face paled, skepticism etched across his brow as he absorbed the impact of her request. Sarah felt the pull of empathy, recognizing the weight of such declarations, especially from a child. It forced her to confront her own evolving perceptions of family, love, and responsibility. "Why do you want me as your dad?" Jake asked, his voice faltering slightly, a tentative bridge marking the distance between capricious doubt and stark potential. "Because I need a dad, the kind that can be there for me, that I can trust." Lily's honesty tore through the air, shimmering with clarity that both disarmed and pushed them all to the floor of raw vulnerability. As her heart drummed a rhythm of fear and courage, Sarah sensed the tumult churning within Jake. This child's simple request rattled him to his core, testing the fragile resolve he had just begun to piece together. It was a startling confrontation, a mirror reflecting the parts of him he'd long buried under regret and fear of inadequacy. "Maybe you don't need to think of it all at once," Sarah offered softly, shifting the focus back to Jake. "You can be there for her in small ways, just like we discussed." In Lily's hopeful gaze, Jake found his own reflection, a nucleus of possibility igniting within him. A rush of determination surged as he straightened, challenging the doubts whispering within the recesses of his mind. This child saw something in him he struggled to acknowledge, a potential he'd almost been afraid to uncover. "Okay, I'll try," he declared, shifting his gaze from Sarah to Lily now, and for the first time, anticipation mingled with uncertainty sparked to life in his eyes. Suddenly, the forest seemed less foreboding, as if it too recognized the burgeoning relief cloaked in acknowledgement. But as Sarah processed this moment, a knot tightened in her gut. Though this was a monumental shift for Jake, the implications weighed on her too. There was no turning back now. They could not retreat to the safety of their shells. Each step forward would demand more from both of them, more honesty, more connection, more risk. "Just remember, it's not just about being the perfect dad, it's about being there," she reminded him, feeling the gravity of their choices seep deep into her bones. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, yet possibility glimmered like dew on morning grass. beckoning them to tread carefully but resolutely. And as they stood facing Lily with tentative smiles, Sarah knew they were at a precipice. This was only the beginning of their transformative journey. They were moving into a realm where their stories intertwined, but what lay ahead would challenge not only Jake, but herself as well. "What if I ask you for help too?" Lily's voice broke through, innocently probing the boundaries of uncharted territories, unearthing uncertainty and promise entwined. With that question hanging precariously in the air, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. It dawned on her that learning to navigate this familial dance was as much about self-acceptance as it was about guiding another. They all stood under the cool, sheltering canopy of trees, caught between moments of revelation and the weight of daunting possibilities. How would they each define their roles in this new reality? The question lingered, excited and terrifying, leaving Sarah breathless with anticipation as another chapter awaited them just beyond the verdant shadows. As dawn broke over the horizon, bathing the forest in soft golden light, Sarah felt a renewed sense of clarity. The uncertainty that had previously plagued her stretched before her like an uncharted map, inviting exploration rather than instilling fear. The shadows of doubt that had tethered her in moments of vulnerability now felt transient. A choice awaited her, one that could redefine everything. "Today is a day for new beginnings," she whispered to herself, the weight of yesterday's doubts lifting. Together with Jake and Lily, she would navigate this path of growth, a journey bound by sincerity and courage. Jake stood tentatively beside her, the early light illuminating his features in a way that reflected the tentative hope burgeoning inside him. After Lily's heartfelt request, he had experienced a shift, a realization that his past did not have to dictate his future. "I'm ready to try," he had declared. But now he seemed anxious, the gravity of his promise pressing down on his shoulders. Lily, with her unyielding spirit, sensed the air around her. "Can we start our adventure now?" she asked, her bright eyes reflecting a boundless enthusiasm. Her innocence served as the anchor they both needed, reminding them of the joys to be discovered in stepping outside their comfort zones. Jake knelt beside her, mustering the strength to meet her gaze. "Yes, let's go find more treasures. They say there are cool rocks and plants up ahead." The sincerity of his tone mirrored a youthful eagerness, a sign that beneath the weight of responsibility, a playful spirit still flickered within him. In that moment, Sarah glimpsed the potential of their dynamic. Jake was not just a mentor or father figure to Lily, but also someone who could learn and grow from her innocence. She felt hope starting to expand within her, a renewed belief that both of them could find their paths intertwined, each unlocking the other's hidden treasures. The trio ventured deeper into the woods, laughter punctuating the air as they engaged in discussions about the mythical creatures they could find. Sarah's heart swelled with love for Lily as she listened to Jake weave stories filled with wonder and imagination. It was remarkable to witness this transformation, a connection founded on both vulnerability and the desire to create something new. But as they crossed a small creek, Sarah noticed Jake hesitate, his eyes clouding over. "I can feel myself slipping," he admitted quietly, pulling Sarah aside while Lily inspected a cluster of wildflowers in the sunlight. "What if this doesn't work out? What if insecurities pull me back into the shadows?" "Jake, it's perfectly okay to feel that way," she reassured him. "You don't have to have it all figured out. Just like that turtle we saw yesterday, each of us carries our past, but finds a way forward. Every step you take is part of your journey toward growth." The light dawned in his eyes, a glimmer of realization that propelled him further. "You're right. I just need to be willing to embrace whatever comes next." As their conversation rounded to a close, laughter erupted from the meadow, beckoning their attention. There stood Lily, a crown of dandelions adorning her head, a joyful embodiment of childhood wonder. "Mom! Jake! Look!" she exclaimed, spinning with delight. In that moment of purity, Sarah felt the weight of their earlier discussions dissipate. It was as if Lily's presence reminded them that precious moments and connections could flourish, regardless of their pasts. "Let's take a picture," Sarah suggested, urgency lighting her spirit. They gathered around Lily, the joy radiating, a moment frozen in time, each of them transformed by the bond crafted through vulnerability and courage. As she raised her phone, Sarah felt a rush of fulfillment ignite within her. The day was a testament to possibility, the culmination of taking risks to embrace a future filled with potential. Later, as they settled on the grass for a picnic of sandwiches and fruit, Sarah found herself reflecting on their growth. Jake's unvarnished honesty and desire to reconnect began to tread beyond mere realization. He not only embraced his past, but took active steps toward healing. A monumental leap. Sarah felt pride swell in her chest, her own journey mirroring the evolution of their relationship. As the sun bathed them in warmth, Jake looked at them, a profound promise shimmering in his eyes. I may not have all the answers, but I want to be here, for both of you. The air thickened with acknowledgement. The unanticipated bond forming was now a bridge leading them into newfound territory. Lily grinned wide, clarity in her innocence. Then we can always be brave. And in that unassuming statement, a realm of potential opened, solidifying the paths of their intertwined lives. As the day melted into evening, Sarah felt calmness wash over her. They had faced shadows, fears, and uncertainties, and yet here they were, stronger, bolder, cherished, investing in themselves and each other. This reflected emergence into their authentic selves marked Sarah's moment of fulfillment. She understood now that while growth requires brave choices, it is the connections that fuel transformation, mold identities, and propel them toward the future. With her heart swelling with confidence, she realized the importance of speaking those newfound truths out loud. Each declaration served as a vow to nurture what had been harbored in the dark. Together, they embraced their vulnerabilities, weaving stories threaded with hope and possibility. And as they prepared to leave the woods, the sun dipping below the horizon, Sarah made a silent promise. To hold on to the courage they had summoned in one another and always seek the treasures hidden beneath the surface of their lives. The adventure had truly begun. If you resonate with these transformative journeys and want to witness the unraveling of powerful stories, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support and leave a like. It empowers us to create more moments of inspiration. Comment below with your reactions and your thoughts on Jake and Sarah's journey. Finally, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see that growth is possible after darkness. Don't wait even one more second to share this experience.